So I get asked a lot about what happens immediately after a crash. And a lot of people say to me, Joe, the NTSB's on the news, are they gonna investigate? Yeah, but what does that really mean? Immediately after a crash, the NTSB will usually be on site, especially if it's a fatal. And when they're on site, they're tasked with document collection, preservation of the aircraft, making sure they find all the components, taking photographs of how it impacted, where it impacted, and the surrounding. And then they're tasked with transporting that aircraft to a storage facility so that they can begin their, what is almost always a 2-year investigation into how that crash happened. So how long does a crash investigation take? Well, typically from the NTSB's perspective, it'll take somewhere between 1.5 to 2 years. And they'll produce 2 forms during the course of that investigation. The first one is just going to be a preliminary report, which is just factual components of the crash. The weather, the aircraft type, the operator, pilot information, all the basic objective data. Then at the end of their investigation, they'll produce what's called a final, and that'll come out with a docket. And the docket contains all the evidence that they use to support their final. And then of course the final is the final determination. So why do you need an aviation attorney if the NTSB is just going to investigate? Well, the NTSB only has so much time, so much money, so much expertise, so much resources to investigate every crash that happens in the country. And quite often they end up missing things, or they don't get all the documentation or evidence preserved on the aircraft, or they don't find all the components of the aircraft in the field, but they're forced and tasked to move files along. So it's important to have that oversight and that expertise to make sure that 1, all the evidence is properly preserved and documented, but 2, every nook and cranny of that investigation is explored so that you can truly find out what happened. A lot of people are curious why both the NTSB and the FAA are often involved in the same crash inspection. Well, that's because they're tasked with 2 different missions and 2 different goals. The NTSB is congressional authority to investigate the crash itself, while the FAA has ability to investigate those things that are pertinent to the furtherance of their congressional powers, which most often is associated with pilot safety, operational safety, and individual aspects of the aircraft itself. So 2 different goals from 2 different agencies on the same investigation, which require 2 different ways of approaching each agency. So how does the NTSB begin their investigation into a crash? Well, they give the operator a form called the NTSB 6120. Now, the 6120 form is a basic form that really approaches, excuse the pun, a crash from a 30,000-foot view, and it lets the NTSB see who was the operator, the hours on the airplane, the type of airplane, the hours with the pilot, the type of operations of the pilot, the meteorological conditions, where it happened, what the goal of the flight was, and if the pilot is still alive, the pilot's narrative or the operator's narrative of the purpose of that flight. From that document, from the 6120, the NTSB can start diving down rabbit holes to find out what happened to the crash. Too often, I see families wait on the NTSB for their final determination of what happened in a crash. In addition to that final sometimes coming out beyond the statute of limitations or pretty close to the statute of limitations, the other issue with the NTSB final report is it holds no evidentiary basis. What does that mean? That means we can't stand in court and put the NTSB report down and say, this is what happened and this is who's at fault. We can't introduce it in court at all for the purpose of demonstrating or proving negligence. So in summary, I think it's clear to see that there's a lot that goes into crash investigation, way more than just waiting for the NTSB to come out with their report. It's important to have attorneys that can provide oversight, that can provide expertise and knowledge within aviation to make sure that the investigation is done in a timely manner to preserve your legal rights, but more importantly, is done effectively and appropriately and properly so that you find out what truly happened in that crash. So if you're at all associated with an aircraft crash, and you just want that second opinion, or you want to know a little bit more about the investigation, or you want some legal help with the investigation, please feel free to reach out to us at any time.